Hello everyone, this is L Spectra. Welcome back to the Land of Empires. So after a bit of delay, we are about to enter Season 9 finally after about 6 months of waiting. But I am making this video in hopes to give you my first impressions of these hero skills. So I want to focus on the hero skills because their stats are once again just marginal increases from the previous couple seasons, and therefore the stats will never be the focus of these first impression or review videos unless they get some significant boost. So let's dive straight into the hero skill, starting with the infantry hero Osiris. His rage skill releases, whatever. So it deals 5 instances of 400% damage to all enemy troops around the caster, probably suggesting this targets infantry and cavalry, while reducing the damage of their rage skills by 40%. So from the Season 8 infantry hero, his rage skill actually was described to deal quite a lot of damage. Like this one. This one actually deals a fair bit more damage. So 5 times 400%, that is 2000%. However, this really depends on the basic damage scaling of this hero. If the damage scaling is weak, then no matter how big this percentage is, this hero will not be dealing much damage, like as we saw for Khufu back in Season 8. So this would really depend on the basic scaling of this hero, but 2000%, that is not shabby at all. That is actually the highest percent damage we've ever seen from an infantry hero. So it will definitely be interesting to see whether this hero will be able to dish out much more damage than the infantry hero we had in Season 8. And the latter part is to reduce the damage of their rage skill by 40%. So this is also quite interesting because if you are able to cast your rage skill ahead of your opponent, then you are literally reducing their rage skill damage by 40%, whereas they will take the full brunt of your rage skill. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how this skill kind of plays together with other skills from the season. His first passive skill, the final defense of your melee units is increased by 150%, pretty standard. After the battle starts, gain 40% damage reduction lasting for 15 seconds. So that latter part is rather interesting. So you gain an additional damage resistance at the beginning of the battle. Now, this kind of makes me wonder what this is kind of defending against. And when we are looking at the other skills by the two other heroes, maybe we'll go back to this skill. But after the first 15 seconds, the 40% damage resistance will no longer be present. His third skill, it increases your troop damage, skill damage, which I believe includes the rage skill, by 100%. This bonus decreases by 10% every 3 seconds up to a maximum reduction of 80%. So this kind of suggests that this is a more frontal hero. So a lot of his skills are kind of in the front. A lot of the damage are in the front. So you would expect this hero to be able to dish out the majority of his damage maybe within the first 20 seconds of the battle. Does he have any skill that increases his rage skill cast speed is what I'm wondering, because if he doesn't, or if the Season 9 hero team does not have any way to increase his rage skill cast speed, then this passive might not be so good. Because after about 30 seconds, this will go down to just just a 30% boost, which is not very appealing. But this does mean that his first rage skill should theoretically deal quite a lot of damage, because this hero is completely built towards the early part of the battle. So if they do give Osiris good damage scaling, like base damage scaling, then I see this infantry as an infantry that can actually do damage. And we saw that back in, I believe, Season 6 and 7, where Neptunarch in Season 7 and Frost in Season 6 actually dealt much more damage than the Cavalry and the Archer in some cases. Let's check out the Awakening skill. In the first 20 seconds of the battle, reduce the rage skill damage of the enemy melee troop by 30% and their charge speed by 30%. So this is actually quite important. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. If you are able to cast the rage skill ahead of your opponent, then you are able to bring forth the full effect of your damage while reducing their capability. And if this targets the infantry as well as the cavalry, then it's quite significant because you are able to cast your rage skill ahead of your opponent, and this will make your combat much more effective than your opponent. So actually, now that I'm seeing this awakening skill, like just based on first impressions before I even look at the cavalry and the archer hero, this is quite a good rage skill. So this hero might be very well important to awaken as soon as possible. But before we make any conclusions, let's check out the other two heroes, starting with, is this the cavalry? Yes, this is the cavalry. So stats, is that exactly the same stats as the infantry? 496, 496. So the developers are like, just fuck it. Let's just give everyone the same stats. Let's not waste our resources on giving random stats. But yeah, the rally, attack and defense stats are similar, but a little different. But yeah, let's focus on the skills once again. Wow, 1000 damage at level 1. So his rage skill is to deal 2000 damage to the target enemy troops and reduce their charging speed by 90%. Hold on a moment. Let me go to Dorothy just to take a look at how much charging speed her skill reduces by. Also 90% actually. 90% lasting for 9 seconds. So this skill is very similar to Dorothy's awakening skill. Let's go back to that hero. It reduces the charge speed by 90%. While this effect lasts, they also lose 5% charge value upon taking any damage. So this is actually quite the upgrade to Dorothy's rage skill. Dorothy's rage skill, all it does is that it deals actually very negligible damage. Let's actually take a look at her skill damage, because I never really noticed Dorothy's rage skill doing a lot of damage. It actually deals a lot of damage, 1700%. But I do think that the meat of his skill lies in the last part of the skill description. So it also reduces the charge value by 5% upon taking any damage. And keep in mind, these heroes attack about once every 1.5 seconds. So if all three heroes attack, and I haven't seen any disarm skills yet. So assuming that all three heroes land their normal attacks, they will be dishing out a minus 15% charge value every 1.5 seconds. And that is before accounting for like rage skill or special skill usage. And keep in mind, some rage skills, they do a lot of hits. Like the infantry, it does 5 hits. So that is an automatic minus 25% charge value. So if this skill is working correctly, imagine your infantry is facing a mirror infantry and you have the awakening skill. So you use this skill first. You suppress your opponent's ability to use their rage skills in time. And as a result, your opponent's infantry suddenly, they lose 25% charge value once you cast your rage skill. So this looks to be pretty significant. And once again, it's important, the rage skill can only be used if your unit is actually alive. So this is contrary to the passive skills. The passive skills, as long as you have one unit when your army enters the battle, the passive skill will apply until the end of the battle. However, for the rage skill, you must cast it actively through the duration of the battle. If your unit dies, then the rage skill effects are void. So it looks to be important to keep the Cavalry hero alive in Season 9. So we'll see if the Cavalry hero has any self-protective effects going to passive skill 1. In the first 15 seconds of the battle, increases your final HP of your infantry by 150%. That's quite good actually. You gain 20% additional charge value after using a skill. So this actually helps the Cavalry spam his rage skill. So this is a skill not so much different from Morgan's, I believe, passive skill 2. So Morgan's passive skill 2 has the ability to retain charge after using the rage skill. So 20% is definitely lower than 35% from Morgan, but this will still help this hero spam his rage skill. And his second passive is to reduce the basic attack of the enemy cavalry troop by 90% and increase their basic attack damage taken by 90%. Interesting. So I don't think the basic attack damage taken by 90% is super significant, because the archer the archer deals with the infantry. The infantry targets the cavalry. So the infantry doesn't really do much basic attack damage. So I think the biggest emphasis here is the reduced basic attack damage dealt by 90%. So I think this is a indirect protective effect for the archer. The cavalry is actually quite good at killing the archer, whether that's through the normal attack or the rage skill. This skill right here will theoretically prevent your archer from dying to their normal attack skill that bypasses the front line. So after about 6 seconds after the battle starts, the cavalry will actually directly attack the archer once. And this skill, if it reduces that damage by 90%, that's going to help the archer a lot. So let's take a look at the awakening skill. Increases all allied troops' rage skill charge speed, by 60%. The bonus decreases by 5% every 5 seconds up to a maximum reduction of 50%. Now the second part actually isn't that important, but the first part, 60%, that's quite incredible. I'm not too sure whether all 60% will be applied, because from previous testing, you kind of hit a limit of 50%. Once you went above that, like for example, season 5 Lisbeth, the archer, or is she season 6? Whatever. Lisbeth's passive skill increases her rage skill charge speed by 100%, but that is not reflected in her actual performance. Her actual increase is only about 50%. And this also applies to various stacking like Quinn and Lisbeth, or some of the season 1 heroes, but I won't go too much into that. But 60%, it is at least a 50% increase. So this is very good by itself. Also, for counteracting various skills that decreases the charge speed. So I believe the infantry had a skill that decreases the charge speed, right? Or decreases rage skill damage. Yeah, and their charging speed by 30%. So imagine your charging speed goes from a base of 100% to a 70%. If you apply the cavalry's awakening skill, you can pretty much eliminate that reduction in charge speed. So this cavalry awakening skill is actually very important as well. Wow, so we have 2 heroes who may be very important to rush their awakening. But yeah, very good damage. If the basic scaling for this hero is high, 2000% damage, and reduces their charge speed by 90%. And this hero is able to spam this skill much better than Dorothy. So it's going to be a very, very potent skill if we are able to keep the cavalry alive for any extended periods of time in the fight. And finally, let's review the archer hero, whose rage skill is to deal 1000% damage to the target troops and nearby troops, probably infantry and cavalry once again, reducing their skill damage by 70% for 9 seconds. Okay, so this is probably rage skill. One thing that I'm not very sure of is whether the attack that pierces through the front line by the cavalry that directly targets the archer, whether that's considered a skill damage or a normal attack damage. I do think it's considered a normal attack damage. So this will reduce the rage skill damage by 70%, which is quite important. I believe this is rage skill damage. If they're able to spam this, then this will be a very potent skill. Let's check out the passive one. Increase your cavalry and archer troops' rage skill damage by 50%. That's quite good. And reduces their basic attack damage taken by 60%. Okay, that's really good. That's really, really good. So the archer is quite known to be weak, very weak against a lot of things. Like the season 6 archer, they die to everything. The season 7 archer, Leona is actually quite good. But Leona kind of dies to Leona. The season 8 archer dies to pretty much every combination of season 6 cavalry teams. And now, finally, we may have an archer that can keep themselves alive versus other seasons. So the reason why I say that is like the only two things that really target the archer are the normal attacks that pierces through the front line and the rage skills. So whether the rage skill is coming from the enemy infantry, cavalry, or archer. In Season 8, that rage skill came from the cavalry. So if we are able to prevent the cavalry from actually using their rage skill, whether that's coming from, or where is it? Yeah, 90%, like reduce their charge speed by 90%. If this skill gets spammed, then the enemy cavalry will have a hard time actually using their rage skill. And this part of the skill allows the archer to kind of tank their piercing skill, I believe. So this skill in combination of the cavalry passive should, in theory, allow the archer to survive the piercing attacks by the opposing cavalry. And the various charge speed reductions from these heroes should allow the archer to survive their rage skill, which they will not be able to use. So that is all theoretical. But as we have seen from the previous two seasons, theory goes completely out of the window with skill interaction. So I'm really looking forward to how these heroes will interact together and how they will interact with other season heroes. But before that, let's check out the last two skills. His first skill is to gain what? His first skill is to gain a 20% charge value when your troops perform a basic attack. So this is an upgrade, I believe, from Leona's passive skill here. While in battle, your troops are immune to disarm. The damage of rage skill damage taken is reduced by 80%. So this is kind of why Leona can survive rage skills, is because she has a self-protection. After a normal attack, they receive 10% charge value. So this is like Leona on steroids. I'm not even sure whether they can like program this to work. Like, will Emperor Qing just be spamming his rage skill like every 5 seconds or so? No, even faster than 5 seconds. Like, this is on a scale of every 4 seconds. Because if we have the awakening skill by the cavalry here, that increases the charge speed by 50%. So without any boost to the charge speed, you can expect your heroes to spam their rage skill about once every 11 seconds. So this is based on testing from previous seasons. Assuming that the rage skill cycle is still 11 seconds, then this alone should be able to narrow it down to maybe 6 seconds. Maybe 7 seconds. So with a 7-second interval between the rage skill spam, this alone can reduce that to 3 or 4 seconds very easily. So yeah, I don't know whether that is actually programmed into the game, because if it is, we will see Emperor Qing use his rage skill every 3 to 4 seconds. And which means that their reduced skill damage, this effect, will be upped permanently as long as the archer is alive. So it will actually be fairly important to keep the archer alive in order to suppress the opposing cavalry. And infantry, of course. So this is, one of the best skills in the game for sure, to enable rage skill spam. And finally, the awakening skill. After the battle starts, your first rage skill against the enemy infantry troops deal 100% more damage. That is kind of weird. I think based on first impressions, this is probably the weakest passive skill out of all three heroes, for 2 reasons. The first reason is of course these passive skills by the infantry and cavalry heroes are just so freaking good. Like in the first 20 seconds after the battle starts, reduce the rage skill damage of the enemy troops by 30%, and their charging speed by 30%. Like this basically means that if you're facing a team who does not have awakened infantry, awakened Osiris, then they will literally use their rage skills after you. And that is a big deal. Like your first round of barrage can literally define the outcome of the battle. So that is an incredible awakening skill. And this skill kind of complements that by further suppressing your opponent's infantry, meaning that Actually not. I was confusing that by his awakening. I mean his rage skill. But yeah, this skill further enables your rage skill charge speed and enables you to use your rage skills ahead of your opponent. So let's see who is actually better, because if we combine the two together, what do you have? You have a self-boosting effect combined with an enemy suppressing effect, which is why those skills are so complementary to each other. Because if, for example, this was boosting your charging speed by 30%, then these two skills would kind of overlap, because you cannot really get over a 50% practical charging speed. So having 90% wouldn't be much different than just having 60%. But when you are reducing your enemy's charging speed by 30%, that is a legit stacking of the charging speed. So yeah, I will I'm already excited to awaken Osiris as well as Moria. But yeah, I just don't see this skill working too well in the context of this archer hero, because the whole ability of this archer hero is to spam his rage skill, meaning that his rage skill will not be too damaging. It will be very damaging over time because he's able to cast it every 3 to 4 seconds. But by doubling the damage of the first hit, it really doesn't come off as something that will significantly enhance this hero. I just don't believe that this is overall a very good skill. Like 100% might sound a lot, but it doesn't have any complementary skill that really enables this 100% to have any real impact. Because, and by complementary skill, I mean like a skill that says like the archer deals 100% more damage at the beginning of the fight, reducing by maybe 10% every 3 seconds. Like that would be an enabling skill for this awakened skill. It enables the rage skill to deal a lot of upfront damage and kind of taper off over time. But based on the skill descriptions that I'm reading, Emperor Qing is built to deal steady damage over time and not upfront damage. So I believe that the archer hero is probably the least prioritized in terms of awakening. So I would probably immediately awaken the infantry and cavalry hero, and maybe just leave the archer hero at 8 stars. Let the free fragments carry me to maxing him. But overall, season 8 heroes, just based on the skill descriptions, they look quite good against the other seasons. I'm not too sure how well they will do versus Mirrored Season 8, but especially with Awakened Osiris and Awakened Muria, I don't see other seasons doing very well against Season 9. So I hope everyone enjoyed my first impressions. This is more like preliminary first impressions because I have not actually seen these heroes in combat, but I do look forward to seeing these heroes versus Amir Season 9, as well as versus combinations of previous season teams. I hope everyone enjoyed the first impressions, and I'll look forward to my next video. Take care.